Have a beautiful evening, everyone. I got this question today by a young woman, and she is having a hard time facing the negative things happening to her, and she's having a hard time remaining positive about life and remaining grateful about life. Now, this is not the first time I got this question. It's not going to be the last time. I want to reply to that question, to that issue of bad things constantly happening to you, with a parable, and it's an ancient parable. It's about an old but wise Chinese man, and he had one horse and one son. One day, his son forgot to close the door, so the horse ran off. Consequently, the villagers gathered, and they said, "That's a bad thing that happened to you." And the old wise Chinese man replied, "Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't." Shortly thereafter, the horse came back. Along with it, 6 other horses. 6 wild horses. And now he ended up with 7 horses. The villagers once again gathered, and they said, "That's a great thing that happened to you, isn't it?" The old but wise man replied, "Maybe it is, maybe it isn't." The day after, his son went on a ride on one of the wild horses, and he couldn't handle the ferocity, the energy of the untamed horse, and he was thrown to the ground, and he broke his leg. Once again, the villagers gathered, and they said, "That's a bad thing that happened, isn't it?" The old, the wise man replied once again, "Maybe it is, maybe it isn't." The day after, the army came knocking, and they wanted to draft the old man's son, but then they saw him crippled, so they couldn't take him with them. And once again, the villagers, when finding out about that, they gathered and they said, "Well, that's a great thing that happened." The old but wise man replied once again, and you guessed it, "Maybe it is, maybe it isn't." Very often we need anecdotes or parables to realize a message, because through these described situations, we get a sense of identification. We get to identify with whatever is being described, and therefore we can understand, not just intellectually, but from experience. Say, you once broke your foot, and at that instance it seemed like a bad thing. But then you went to the hospital, and you met that nurse, and it turned out to be the love of your life. So, how do you know that what is happening to you is really a bad thing happening? How do you know it's not a good thing overall? And what's really the difference between good and bad? Isn't everything perception? I've been struggling with various diseases, and the doctors couldn't fix me, if you will. They would only prescribe me more and more medications that turn me more and more into a junkie. And it created more problems than I had before, more issues with my health that I had before, instead of solving the issues. Now you might consider that a bad thing, a story of suffering. But it had to happen, because only through that experience and realizing that the medical system is all fucked up and it's not there to cure you, it's only there to deal with your symptoms. For realizing that, I went on a different path. I went on a alternative path and discovered the most amazing tools, mostly from Eastern Asian cultures, that made my life the most amazing, fun journey that I could picture, really. But back in the days, it seemed like something bad happening. Now, most of the people, they cannot predict the future. So you really don't know whether what's happening to you is a curse or a blessing. And this is also the reason why I love meditation, because through meditation you learn to observe whatever is happening in a neutral way, and you learn to distance yourself from whatever is happening. You stop identifying with what is happening and just see it as life being life. They say that 10% of your life consists of what happens to you, and 90% consists of your reaction to whatever happens to you. Now you can choose to view things that are happening to you as bad, and you can feel sad about it, but in the end you will only make these feelings stronger. Feelings of doubt, feelings of fear, feelings of anger and frustration. Or you can choose to just view it from a distance, realizing that you don't have all of the answers. And this is also something that I've learned, and I'm still learning. And simply enjoy the ride. Now, about this particular topic, there are really only two choices. Either you go through life not trusting in the process, doubting, feeling bad, being with your head in the future and in the past, trying to figure things out that cannot be figured out. Or the second option would be to trust in the process, to trust in life, and to focus on what you can change. To realize that there's no such thing as a good or a bad thing. It all depends on your perception. Living on a street without any wealth or any property might seem like hell to so many people in the Western world. However, I met people in India who have got nothing, but they're happy. It's all a choice. Focus on what you can change. Have trust. I know sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard. And it takes some practice to view life with some distance once in a while. And to trust in the process. I hope I could give you some insights on the topic of negative versus positive events happening to you, and the topic of feeling overwhelmed about it all. So to conclude, or to summarize, you don't know what's going to happen. Focus on what you can do in the now, because the now is all there is, all there ever will be. There's nothing else. And your current state of being in the now will determine your future in the end, or the future nows. View life with some distance, and realize that you cannot know everything. You cannot predict the future, but you can influence the now. With that said, I stay committed to giving you the tools for your empowerment, and I wish you a beautiful evening, if you're also in Europe, or morning or afternoon, wherever you are, or whenever you're watching this. So cheers, and see you soon.